out there who would always rather want to watch, this radio program going on live on our respective social media platforms, including Facebook and YouTube. And so, if you are joining us on Facebook, you may want to share the video. Same with YouTube. And for those of you who are on apex1radio.com, thank you so much and welcome. And so, it's Saturday, October the 26th, 2024. Like 9 days to 9 days to election day. So Americans living in the country and their counterparts living abroad go to the polls on November the 5th to vote for their new leaders and, of course, the new tenants at the White House. So it's starting it will happen on November the 5th. But of course, some other Americans have been voting. Early voting started a couple of days, if not weeks ago, and we'll be talking about that as well. And so, once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much and welcome as we play for time while sharing the live video to our respective social media platforms and to other people who are just joining the show. So it's going to be a fantastic edition of Political Point today, a very special one, of course, which is happening days is happening days before Americans go to their polls. And like I said, if you are just joining us, you may want to share this video so it goes to the four corners of the world. So our intention is to reach you, as extensively as we can. Right. So it's going to be an exciting edition of Political Point. Lots and lots of exciting items will be discussed on the show today. We are fortunate to have experts who have joined us on the show today. And so, who becomes the next president of the United States of America? That is the big question. Will it be former President Donald Trump who gets back into the race, or it will be Kamala Harris? Well, we will talk about that. But just to let you know that when Joe Biden officially stepped aside and Vice President Kamala Harris took the mantle of command for the Democratic Party, many saw this shift coming as Biden's approval ratings had dipped over the year. Kamala Harris became positioned to make her own bid for the White House. And with former President Donald Trump back in the race as Republican candidate and Vice President Kamala Harris now leading the Democratic ticket, the political landscape shifted dramatically. Now, for the past couple of months, the economy and immigration dominated the political conversation, with inflation still a concern for many Americans and immigration policies sparking debates across the country. Now, with these topics sparking debate, Trump and Harris have made them very strong points in their campaign. And so, Trump's first or America first economic message promising tax cuts and a tough stance on border security, and Kamala Harris's importance, or emphasis laid on inclusive immigration policy and economic relief. Both candidates are headed for the ticket or for the mantle of command as they look forward to November the 5th this year. Now, Trump has been crisscrossing the country, energizing his base in critical battleground states. Just in the past couple of weeks, he's been to Florida, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and you name it. Some of the states that are likely to play a pivotal role in deciding the outcome of the elections. And so Harris, on her part, has been focusing her efforts on states like Georgia, Wisconsin, and Michigan, where she hopes to energize Democratic voters and hold on to the key states that helped the Democratic Party win the elections in 2020. Now, both candidates have been making the rounds in the media as well. We've seen Trump appeared on outlets such as Fox, Newsmax, and One American News, where he's been doubling down on his campaign messages and attacking the Biden administration's record, just as any other candidate would do against their opponents. Harris, on her part, has taken a much more traditional route as far as the media is concerned. We've seen her on CNN, MSNBC, and CBS, where she's outlined her vision for a fairer and more just America while defending her administration's policy on healthcare and climate change. We have also seen her on Fox News as well. So all eyes are on the swing states with places like Arizona, Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and others. These states could very well decide the next president of the United States of America. And as it stands, the race is resolving in these areas, and both campaigns are pouring resources into securing every single vote. So, with so much at stake, we will break down concepts, policies, news, voting trends, and other issues on radio today and see what awaits Trump or Harris as they look forward to their next presidential election. And so, who becomes the next president of the United States of America? Harris or Trump? It is a tight race, as we all have noticed, and the polls have also been saying what they've been saying. We'll look at that as well. So we'll look at every aspect, and if you have questions out there and you want our experts to provide answers to those questions, you can drop them in our Facebook thread, or you can text us through WhatsApp for those of you who have the Apex One radio number. Your voices need to be heard as well. And so we're talking American politics and the 2024 elections on radio today. Three gentlemen who will be accompanying us. Unfortunately, DaVante Goins from the Democratic Party has not been able to make it because of some other exigencies. So he just got to us to say, unfortunately, he may not be able to make it. Well, we may be back next Saturday for yet another show on the presidential elections, at least just before Americans go to the polls, and we will have him join us. But today we have Luis Gil. Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yes, you did. Very good.
Luis Gil is from Venezuela. He's a politician and he militates with the Republican Party. He's ran for office before, but this year he's not running. Am I correct?
That's correct.
All right, but he's here to talk about the Democratic or the Republican Party's bid for the presidential this year. Also with us is Apex One Radio's political analyst Rodrigue Nyumia, who did a fantastic job in 2020. Rodrigue did a fantastic job with analyzing the presidential election in 2020. 4 years down the road, he's back for the same exercise. Rodrigue, how are you doing today?
Doing very well.
All right. Yourself? You said some things in 2020, and after the elections, things happened. So, for the past 4 years, first question, how has the political climate been? Could you just assess how the political climate has been as far as, power or the presidency is concerned?
Well, the one thing that I've been keeping an eye on is just the general political discourse, the hope or the wish or the people were hoping that after 2020, maybe Trump will go away and then the language will become significantly different, respectful, non-incendiary, but that has instead grown worse. Like the political discourse, the debate is having more of a negative tone.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's something I've been looking at. It was expecting to be better post Trump, but Trump didn't go away, so it's right around the corner. So the tone has stayed the same or even worse. Ernest.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, will be talking about that. But let me welcome our next guest, who will be live from California. Hopefully, his audio will come across this time. Bernard Ngalim is a legal and policy analyst. He joins us from California. Bernard, can you hear us this time?
Thank you for having me, Ernest. Can you hear me?
Unfortunately, not. Our producer Marcel will work on that, and we'll see how far we can go. We've been having difficulties joining him, especially as far as audio is concerned. Well, we'll come back to that. Once again, thank you so much, Louis, and welcome to the show.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay. Before we started the show off mic and behind the scenes, you were telling us that you hail from Venezuela originally, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Do Venezuelans back home follow American politics and are keen on knowing what is happening in America as people from other parts of the world do?
Yeah, absolutely correctly. We are hoping in that with the Trump, if this victorious this time, he can really help this situation politically in Venezuela. Obviously, if you're aware, we have a they call him the self-president, but we got a dictator who's named Maduro that took over Chavez, and those are very two things that have created a massive migration from Venezuela to the rest of the world. Just to give you a little bit of the stats, is that right now we're 35,000 strong in Ohio, when 20 years ago we were only 100. In Florida, we're almost 1 million. And throughout, just counting the United States and in Europe and Spain is massive. We're talking almost 3 millions in Europe. And those are the things that created that climate that perhaps we're hoping that Trump would change that.
Okay.
And give us a little bit of hope, the freedom, not only to, that we have freedom in the United States, but it's becoming a little bit of dim as time goes by, because of the fact that we think as Republicans that the go ahead.
Beautiful. So in as much as I want us to go chronologically, but you just mentioned something which I'll just go ahead and ask a question, then we'll come back. Now, you hail from Venezuela.
Yes.
And in the past couple of weeks, we've been observing Trump in his campaign, talking about Venezuela and how Venezuelans are streaming into the United States of America, which to him, he doesn't seem to be so happy with that. We'll talk about his immigration policy right ahead. But if I want to put my place in the shoes of an ordinary observer, that would want to ask a question, but this is a Venezuelan who is in support of Trump, whereas Trump doesn't want Venezuelans in the United States of America. So how do you reconcile that?
Well, I can give you specifically. One of the Trump, if you go way back in his first term, he was a very positive in favor of Venezuelans. Okay. Unfortunately, this migration is taking place where we know that Maduro has emptied the jails and have sent people to the United States to commit crimes. So Venezuela has come into a negative light in the eyes of the Americans. One is, there was a lady, a student in Georgia that was killed by Venezuelans. And we have a young lady was raped in Atlanta. And those are things that brought the light, the behavior of Venezuelans in New York, in Arkansas, all the south border states where they're migrating massively.
Okay, Nyumia, back to you. So first things first, how is the campaign going? Who is doing what? Who is going to where? And just 9 days to election day. What is the speed?
you can see now the candidates are both crisscrossing this 7 important crucial battleground states. They are also deploying their surrogates, their vice president, as this is a weekend. They tend to think that people are going to be more attuned with what is going on because this last week is critical. There are a lot of people that know that there's an election. They don't pay attention to the everyday talk about it because sometimes it becomes monotonous or it becomes divisive. But this last week, there's 3% of Americans that have not made up their mind. And with the race this close, this 3% can mean a lot. So both campaigns have decided to be repetitive, in this crucial swing states to see who can change their mind last minute and who they can vote for. Now, the Republicans primarily have Donald Trump and his vice presidential pick nominee, DaVante, doing their primary work with some brilliant minds in the background. But the Democrats have the luxury of having star power endorse them. You've seen Kamala Harris had an event this week in Atlanta where you had a lot of celebrities that showed up for her, including the former president. And just yesterday, she was in Houston, where you would think that Texas is a solid red state. Why is she there? But it was to prove a political point, women's right. Texas has been, they have a very strict abortion law. So she had to highlight that. And everybody, it's a foregone conclusion. Kamala Harris is going to win the popular vote, which doesn't matter. That can be another topic of debate for the next so many years.
Right.
But we're going to go back to these 7 swing states that matter. What is she doing? How is she doing it? Which, starting another very popular politician or wife of a politician, Michelle Obama, will be stomping in Michigan this weekend. For her. Yeah.
Okay. 2020, 2016, 2024. Nyumia, I wanted to make a short comparison. This is the third time Trump is in a campaign. How would you compare these 3 different campaigns? 2016, 2020, 2024.
It's like a zigzag.
Okay.
One thing is for sure, the standard is quite different right now. Kamala Harris is not just a woman, she's a woman of color, whatever you want to target as. So she's having those 2 extra, I don't want to call them stereotype, but hurdles to go over, explain herself and explain again. 2016, one thing is for sure this time around, Democrats are not taking anything for granted.
Okay.
You might remember back in 2016, they thought they had Michigan and they had Wisconsin in their bag. This time around, from the first day she became the nominee or the presumptive nominee, she's always sold herself like the underdog. So they've never at one point said, we're doing better than the other campaign. They're constantly selling themselves like we are the underdog, and they're learning from the mistakes that they did in 2016. Don't assume anything, talk to everybody and talk to them respectfully, and then get them out to vote, because the polling can be deceiving sometimes. There is legitimately somebody in this country that'll be like, well, yes, I want to vote for Trump, for instance, but Trump is doing well in the polls, so I must well just stay home because I don't need to. He's going to win anyway. That can be a source of complacency. So the conversation now is, yes, you support my campaign, please get out and vote for what you support for. Don't relax and say, well, it's going to go this direction anyways, because it's twofold. There are folks that would just assume that, well, Trump is going to win. So in as much as I want Kamala to win, Trump is going to win anyways. That can be an assumption. And then it hurts Kamala more. But there are people that will be like, well, Kamala is going to win anyway, so I don't need to show up to vote, So the campaign is, don't assume that, get out and vote. Your vote matter, which individually, I think the country has come a long way from its inception to where we are right now. This is a luxury. Like Luis was saying, that in Venezuela it's a dictatorship. Some people don't have the luxury of voting.
That's right.
And let the process be transparent. So just the act of going to exercise and people that don't like either candidates, they still go. Like you see Mike Pence is not going to vote for Donald Trump. But guess what? He's going to show up at the poll, write in a name, because that's his civic duty to
That's
vote.
right.
Even if he's not going
That's
to
so
vote for one
beautiful.
person or the other.
That's so beautiful. Let me ask another question before I go to Luis. But one would have thought that this is a midterm election because somebody has finished their first 4 years, and in the past it would traditionally be 8 years. Like they will always get re-elected, except for 2020 when Trump got booted out after his first four years, and so it becomes even more complicated because we are, like you said, some people are seeing Trump coming back. So are we heading towards a scenario where this time around those 8 years will no longer be guaranteed?
It can become a new trend because let's assume that Kamala Harris wins the presidency and she performs very poorly. She automatically becomes a one-term president.
Okay.
And then so it's up for grab again. Of course, she will run. But is that depending on her performance? Running as an incumbent is very complex.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of baggage with you, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
So how do you sell the good, and how do you mitigate the damage about the bad things that might have happened during your 4 years in office? And that is why I think the Trump or the Republicans are so successful, or at least they are tying up with the Democrat this time around, because they have successfully treated Kamala Harris as an incumbent president. If you listen to them, you have to be very careful. They go the Harris-Biden administration.
That's right.
But you have to be, that's not correct.
Yeah.
That's how
Biden-Harris.
it's Biden-Harris administration. But because they want to drew in the fact, they want to treat Kamala Harris as an incumbent, so they call it the Harris-Biden administration. And I find it very interesting. I think it's politically smart. I think,
Okay, let me come back to Luis.
If I may make a remember this.
Go ahead, yeah.
Kamala did not go through the process of the primary.
Okay.
She didn't do that. She came and got adopted, if you can say politically, to run.
Which wasn't her fault, though.
But the fact of the matter, it was not elected by the Democrats.
Okay.
She was elected by Mr. Biden. And the fact of the matter, she did not go through the process. Something that Democrats did not see that very nice.
So was that illegal? Was it?
No, it was nothing illegal.
It defies the democratic cry that democracy, legitimacy.
What about the context? Because it came at the point where everyone was on Biden's throat, asking him to step down.
That's right.
And again, look at the time. We're already getting close towards.
Absolutely, but Democrats knew that if they went and started an infighting in the nomination process, it will give more meat to the Republican.
Well, and you have to say that it was by design. We don't know that for sure, but the fact of the matter that Biden wanted to stay, he did not give Kamala the opportunity for the Democrats to elect her in the primary.
Okay. Yeah. And there's a question I actually would have loved the representative of the Democratic Party to answer, but since you are a political analyst, I can go ahead and ask that question to you before I get to you.
No problem.
Right.
No.
So in 2020, Biden was 78. And so Democrats knew exactly that in 2024, he would be 81, 82. And that wouldn't, he wouldn't have to be at the helm anymore. So strategically, were they wrong not to have anticipated this and even start getting his replacement back then?
So, this is twofold. There is what the Democratic Party wants to do and what Biden wants to do.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
In 2020, it was like an emergency. If there's a bleed, stop the bleed.
Okay.
The bleed in this case was, we need to get Trump out of here. Let's get him and then worry later.
Okay.
But he got in, they got a little bit comfortable. But like Louis said, it was by design. Because to piggyback on your question, they knew that at this time he's going to be 81, 82. Is he going to be fit? Is he going to be able to run the country? That was a question that they intentionally didn't want to answer to cause an uproar. But they needed to get Trump out of the way. Is that situation that fits well with the saying that we'll cross the bridge when we get there?
Okay.
So now they got here, they're like, okay, what is our best option? I call it sneaking Kamala Harris through the back door.
Yep.
Which you could argue otherwise, but that's how I see it.
Oh,
Beautiful.
he's correct.
Okay, Louis, I just want you to take 30 seconds and tell us why you joined the Republican Party.
Why did I join it? Wow, I have to, if I may, to say that back when I arrived to this country from Venezuela, Venezuela was very wealthy. Venezuela didn't have any issues. It was democracy at that point. And when I arrived, I learned English at 18 years old through Ronald Reagan. So because I was like political motivated in a way to learn the history of this country and how better way to listen to the politicians. So, and that's how by design, I became a Republican, because it was, I don't want to call it indoctrinated, but I was listening at 18. Who at 18 years old has political ambitions? Nobody. So, but he was there, he was on TV, he was there, and I learned his his good things. I mean, imagine this wrong guy that took the wall down in Russia and Germany. You know what I mean? So those are the stuff that was interesting, political.
Next question, and I want you to be very brief. What is the health of the Republican Party now?
What is it? What
is the health of the Republican Party?
Well, I mean, if we talk nationally, we're okay. In the county, it's a very, very difficult because 70% of population in Franklin County is Democrat. So we have this issue with with the mayor, congressmen, and all this stuff. But the stuff that matter is that we are alive. We're coming. Little stats have been at the early voting center for the last 3 weeks, and you can see the changes back in 2016. Maybe 1,200 people showing up to early voting. Right now we're 5,000 strong. What does that mean? We're still fighting. We still have a little bit of preoccupations in the county, but it reflects what's going to happen the rest. Look at Michigan.
Before Trump, you had the Republican Party big wigs, right? You know them. The Ted Cruz's, Christie, Chris Christie,
Marco Rubio,
right? So Trump comes in and virtually overshadows everybody, beats everybody in every primary. Then comes in with a group of people who think than the Democratic Party. And observers are saying that they are seeing the Democratic Party, I don't want to use disappearing because probably it will still stay around, but losing a lot of strength in the future.
Correctly.
Whether Trump wins these elections or not. If he wins, all right, MAGA is stronger. If he loses, he may finally detach himself from the Democratic Party and take along all the Republican Party addicts, Trump addicts, along with him. And that will cause the Republican Party a whole lot as well.
That's right.
So is it true that we are seeing people in the Republican Party who are just hanging on to Trump because, well, they don't have a choice, but backstage, they really don't like him? That's why I asked, how is the party doing? Is the party in good health?
Well, internally, we have to, obviously advocate for a Republican candidate. But if I take you back a little bit before that, before Trump entered the political arena, he was a Democrat. He was with Hillary. He was with all those friends and stuff like that. But he decided that that's not the way that the country. He had no ambitions prior to that. He wanted it, but he thought that the country needed somebody like him. And he decided to come into the arena. He did really well. Pointed out the issues, the problems. Now we go into a problem with almost 4 years of Biden. What do we have in the world other than horrible immigration status here in the United States? But we got a war. Let's take you back. We had an election in Venezuela almost 2 months ago. They decided they're not going to give power. So they would not democracy. So we're going to see what happens in November. But then after Venezuela was in the first point on the limelight, they became the war in Israel. They became Russia and Ukraine. All the stuff Venezuela took a backseat. Imagine that we're the back on the back of the United States, very close. But the fact that Israel,
that is understandable. But what we're saying is that we are seeing more of the Trump brand than the Republican Party brand. Like if you get a young man from the street and you put Trump and the Republican Party side by side, they know Trump, but they don't know the Republican Party. Whereas Trump is still bearing the flag of the party. So that's what we're saying. So don't the party risk a moment when it will Trump will finally
Possible.
it and
Possibly.
okay.
Possibly. But the fact of the matter, the fact that he can be the guy right now that perhaps we're in a historical moment. 250 years of democracy in the United States is coming to this particular election.
Okay.
And this is the stuff that we, the Americans, are tired of the fact that the country is not working the right way because immigration status, economy, and the world.
Okay.
You know, then we got China is being quiet right now. Russia is trying to fight this war with Ukraine. But I believe in Israel, I believe, my opinion, is taking advantage that there's a turmoil politically in the United States. So he's going to go and clean up, what he's thinking that he needs to be done. But the fact of the matter, I believe the Prime Minister of Israel is counting and betting that Trump will be the next president.
Luis, if we want to be transparent, you belong to the Republican Party.
Yes.
In-house, what are people saying about Trump?
Well, I mean, we are loyal. We all staying behind him. People are coming out. And the reason I can tell you that, when we have 5,000 people showing daily, anywhere from 4,500 to 5,000 daily historical in Franklin County at the early voting center, that tells you something.
Let me go to the political analyst, Rodrigue. The Republican Party and the Democratic Party have been around for a while, for a very long time. But we are living in a world where things are changing and anything can happen. When you look at this, we're talking about the Trump brand. Do you envisage a time when this Trump brand can cost the Republican Party maybe its image, and especially with the coming up of another movement, because people are observing the coming up of MAGA as a political movement in the future. So why is Trump so strong?
So Donald Trump speaks to specific people in the United States. He's so politically incorrect. And mind you, people like Luis cannot outrightly say we disagree with you in public, because they will tell you, big Trump supporters, they start by saying that I don't like the way he said this, but he's my guy. Like, he said it so incorrectly.
It's not perfect.
He's
not
like,
perfect.
he's my guy. Like, they know what they need out of Trump. But the Trump brand will go away. I'll tell you why. From 2016 to date, every candidate, you can look at Kerry Lake in Arizona, that have tried to use the Trump style to campaign has fluttered. They haven't. She's run for governor, she failed. She ran for the Senate, she failed. She ran for the Senate again, she failed. She used the Trump tactics. The Trump tactics is good for Trump,
only
and
for Trump,
and nobody else. And if you look, Ron DeSantis was a mini Trump, miniature Trump. The way he campaigned in the primaries, he tried to. He was Harvard educated Trump versus the Trump from the streets, but he didn't work for him. So right now, people generically don't want to upset Trump, especially folks in the Republican Party. They just want to get with the program, because everybody knows this is the last time they'll have to deal with him.
Right.
Now, either he win this election and they would deal with him for the next 4 years, or he doesn't win the election and he goes away and we're back. I promise you, if anybody comes and try to use the Trump tactics to run for president, they're not going to be successful. Or to run for any office, period, they're not going to be successful. No, this was designed for Trump and Trump alone. Yeah.
Well, he designed that himself, and Trump is a guy that, he's always in charge. And unfortunately, businessman, and trying to always be like that for since he was 30 years old. It is hard to break, but the fact of the matter, being the leader, not only in the United States, but the rest of the world is trying to connect with peaceful 4 years, because Trump will be the one will tell the world and the leaders, this is the way we're going to do it. This is the best way for all of us.
This is Political Point on Apex One Radio, the edition of October the 2024. 9 days to the presidential elections in the United States of America, and we're focusing on that election on this edition of the show. So we are looking at the news, the actors, the stakes. Let's find out if Bernard Ngalim is now joining us from California. Ben, welcome. Can you hear us now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right. We still cannot hear him. I really do not know what the problem is. Well, Marcel will still try to sort that out. All right. quick question, and this is going to be a very tough one, Louis. You forgive me for,
That's okay. That's okay.
for that. So Trump is not an ordinary candidate. Trump is not an ordinary man. He's not an ordinary former president. He is exceptional. He's different. I think he is a unique story since in the history of the presidency of the United States. And so we have a Trump who was in power between 2020 and 24. Then he's coming back. Now, within this time, a lot of things happened, including a January 6th, 2021 event where his people are supposed to have, or actually stormed the Capitol and disrupted a session that was going on, and this case has hung on his head since then, but he's been able to make it through and still become candidate. There have been lots of other legal suits against him and a whole lot of other things, you know, making people think that Trump is not qualified to run for public office. And I can quite remember that on the day of the January 6th incident, Republicans and even the ones in Congress came out against him and literally disqualifying him for running for any public office anymore. But here he is. So people are saying out there that, why is Trump running, by the way? So I'll ask that question to you.
You know, January 6th, in my point of view, is a dark moment in the United States. Whether Trump had created it or not is something that we're all to see. And very unfortunately that, but there were so many items happening on that day. Georgia, you know, that, you know, apparently we call in the stolen election, but we're going to move from that point, you know, very unfortunately, when you go Trump personality, he's not gonna let it go. Trump doesn't appear to be a loser. He doesn't appear to be a person that is gonna lay down. Unfortunately, his temperament can't do this. But the fact of the matter is, if historically, I think we live in a moment that Trump is necessary for the country. Where he's moment. I mean, things the country is completely polarized. You know, Democrats, Republicans. Is it something that he did wrong? I'm gonna leave that to people to decide, because it's a very tough. It's a tough moment, dark moment in the United States. Having the vice president that you mentioned, and that, you know, turning his back on him and say he's Democrat. Well, you know, Trump is not a perfect guy, but it's the guy of the moment. I believe, but what I seen and what I read and what I think is the fact that he's the guy for the moment, not only for the United States but the rest of the world. We find there will be, and we can come back after, you know, he wins election, and the way he's gonna do things, not only in the United States but also on the world. And the world is looking for peace.
Okay, perfect. Let me turn to the political analyst, Rodrigue. So on the night of January 6, 2021, if you ask anyone else except diehard Trump supporters, they would have said, "Okay, it's done for Trump. He just cannot run for office after this incident." And so much water ran under the bridge. Here we are in 2024. He's running. We've seen the legal suit and all sorts of you know, things against Trump, yet he is running. So the ordinary man out there really doesn't seem to understand, right? They're asking a lot of questions. So as a political analyst and someone who's been following this, what has really happened and what has transpired, right, to make Trump qualified to still run?
You know, Trump is a very good salesman.
Okay,
let me tell you how he sells this. Oh, I had 34 felony count. Remember, I told you the system was rigged. They're using it against me. It's the thing I told you. And that's the language that the ordinary guy understands. That I am fighting for you. Remember, I told you that this system, there's a swarm here that we need to drain out. Yes, this is proof that they're using it against me. So that creates an immediate room for people to forgive him and continue to support him.
But that's about the people. What about the legal system? Because the people can forgive him, right? That's political talk and so on, but these are lawsuits, and this is the law we're talking about as well.
Right. Good. So he has started by sowing doubt in the justice system by saying
Okay.
that it's rigged. It's all liberals that are. For instance, there was no way, legitimately so. You can say the jury system is what we use in the United States.
Mhm.
There was no way his peers in New York,
Mhm.
in the Bronx, were gonna not convict him.
Mhm.
Remember, the state of New York is
Mhm.
very liberal.
Okay.
So he argues that, first of all, they had a court, the prosecutor was so liberal
Mhm.
because when Trump was president in 2016, most of the attorney general, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, most
Mhm.
of those people ran for office on the premise that we're going to hold Trump accountable. He's not bigger than the law.
Okay.
So Trump is quick on his feet. Like I said,
Yeah.
he's a good salesman. He flips it around and say, remember what I told you, people? They're out to get me. And he has clips of them campaigning that we're going to hold Trump accountable.
Mhm.
So now he's like, yep, they succeeded to win the election and got into their position. And guess what? They're not persecuting me.
Mhm.
And listen carefully, because there's a difference between prosecution and persecution.
Yep.
And he
Yep.
sells it so well. That is why, in as much as is the legal system, is the justice system,
Mhm.
but Trump is a good salesman. He knows how to flip it and make him. He constantly looks like a victim.
Mhm.
He knows how to look like a victim. So now the merit of the case is a conversation that legal might have, but
Mhm.
his ability to flip it around and make him work in his favor is genius.
So, are you saying, or are you insinuating that with some other candidate, it won't work? It would only work with a Trump who is good at it.
That candidate will have to start by saying that the justice system is perfect.
Okay.
And the moment that person says the justice system is perfect, then everybody's going to be like, therefore, you're guilty of these 34 felonies.
Mhm.
So Trump started from the get to say it's rigged, it's corrupt, it's deep state. And so once you set that premise, once you set the tone like that, now you piggyback on it. You then
That's right.
say, remember, I told you that the whole thing is rigged from the
Yeah.
get. Look at me, I'm being persecuted. And like I said earlier, remember, there's a huge difference between a prosecution and a persecution.
Mhm.
And he's surviving. He's still very relevant because he's a good salesman.
So in 2020 or 2024, we did not see Republican primaries that were as highly contested as the case in 2016. So I'm asking myself, was there a need for any primaries within the Republican Party? Did they just do that for the sake of it, or just to justify democracy, or they really actually, the candidates actually went there to knock Trump off the Republican ticket?
Well,
Because we've seen a Trump whose popularity grew even more after 2020, after 2016, after
Yeah.
2020. Then we still had courageous Republican Party aspirers who went into the primaries to knock Trump out. Were they serious?
Well, of course, everybody was serious, but the fact of the matter, like he said, Trump is quick on his feet. I mean, it's hard to confront somebody that very intelligent. He had mentioned his IQ is way up there, but the fact of the matter is, we did not have a contestant. The governor of Florida. He tried.
Okay.
Very intelligent guy. We all the pedigree. Naval guy. He has a good. It's a good governor in Florida,
Mhm.
but the fact of the matter is that Trump is always tried to put that the country's first,
Okay.
and people buy that. But that's what we believe: country
but-
first.
But we think that some other candidate from the Republican Party would even say that, especially after learning how this worked for Trump in 2020. So my question is, does the Republican Party think that with another candidate, the party would have performed better, or
Better?
it only had to be Trump?
No, they had to be Trump, and that's
Okay.
where we start behind. We gotta create unity, because that's the only way it's gonna work.
Well, not to interrupt
No,
you,
it's
but
okay.
that does go back to add to the point that, remember, Ron DeSantis was viewed as the favorite.
That's
The
right.
moment Joe Biden got into the White House,
Yeah,
Ron
that's
DeSantis
right.
looks like the next nice thing
Yeah.
that will get Biden out of the office. And what did he do? He started behaving, talking, acting like Donald Trump.
Mhm.
That brand is only good for Trump.
Okay.
But remember, people that are moderate, that they're not too much to the right,
Yeah.
had hope for a change in the Republican Party. I'll tell you why. After Nikki Haley dropped out of the election,
Yeah.
in different primaries in different states, you had up to 20,000 people voting for her,
That's
in
correct.
as much as he had
Yeah.
dropped out. So that kind of tells you that they really would have wished for a change, but they got Trump, so they had to get behind the candidate, align behind the candidate.
There's so many ingredients that can tell you that Trump is the guy for the moment.
Yeah.
We got a lot of immigration. I mean, you see historical things. One of the things that the Trump always say, the wall is needed. Well,
Okay.
he's been proving that that's needed.
Beautiful. We will talk a little bit about Kamala Harris's candidacy. Then we'll start talking about their policies. So, Rodrigue, we see an aspiring vice president for the Democratic Party, whom some observers have described as a firebrand politician because he's quite eloquent and knows how to talk, right? So I just want to throw this to you. Some observers think that the Democratic Party would have thought about this, going back to the question I asked you before, and get guys like Tim Walz to lead this process. And like you said, Harris has some natural disadvantages, which Tim Walz definitely doesn't. So what about him taking the lead and Harris maintaining a VP spot?
If I may, remember, Kamala didn't come to the right process.
Okay.
She did not was in the primary. I just want to put that in there.
Okay, so we're just trying to play over these things and see, because that's what some observers are thinking.
So Kamala Harris had to go for a vice presidential that looks like Middle America. That
Okay.
looks like, remember, the assumption America is inherently biased. Okay.
So was it the inclusion thing?
You have to a middle-aged white guy. It's who, if statistically, if you look at all the 46 presidents of the United States, you look at it, you realize that everybody won the election with the older white guy, middle-aged white guy. So that is the norm. So to kind of neutralize the idea that Kamala Harris was far to the left, a liberal out of San Francisco, she had to choose a nominee that it looks like represents Middle America, middle-aged white guy, high school principal, has lived a normal life, is not a millionaire, does the regular thing that everyday American does, high school coach, those qualities. Of course, it comes with.
And don't forget that he was in overseas, and he wasn't overseas. Remember that?
Well, he came in the debate and acknowledged that, put it nicely, that sometimes he's a knucklehead saying things that really, which was a very nice way to kind of like address all the inconsistencies, is what he said.
All right, gentlemen, I think let's try Bernard to see if he's joining us. Bernard, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now 5 on 5. Thank God.
Oh, fantastic.
You're welcome to the program, Bernard. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me. And I've been enjoying the conversations from this side. Unfortunately, you couldn't hear me. But I'm happy to be in now.
Fortunately, you've joined us now. Right. So how is California this Saturday afternoon?
Well, we are doing good. It's bright. It's sunny outside. And the hope is the sunny day is going to bring some happiness, some brightness in people's minds, especially as we are all discussing the elections and looking at what is going to happen in the United States over the next 10 days as people are going to the polls already. And who is going to carry the day? Of course, California, Oregon, Washington State are, of course, blue states. And there is no question about that. Though Trump has been having some inroads in these states, and his followers in these 3 blue states are actually picking some steam in local elections. And if you look at what happened in Oregon last year, 2 years ago during the midterms, the governor was almost the Republican candidate, who was a strong supporter, almost won the elections. So it's kind of becoming really competitive on this side. And when you look at Garvey, who is competing for the Senate seat as a Republican against Adam Schiff, the debate is becoming fierce, but of course that it is California and we shouldn't expect any significant changes, but there is some movement towards the side of the Red Party. But that said, we are talking about California, and the Democrat Party is quite strong and operating very strong on this side of the country.
Beautiful. Bernard Ngalim is a legal and policy analyst who is also very keen on the U.S. elections. He follows it, by the letter. And one thing with Bernard is he's extremely sensitive to statistics, to numbers, and of course, and facts. Then he also talks policy. Bernard, before I go to the first question, you just mentioned blue states. And I'm asking myself, has this become a permanent rule that blue states will remain blue states and red states will remain red states? We keep talking about change. Things are changing. We are in 2024. Are we going to, like 2028, still talking about blue states, red states?
One thing is certain. Donald Trump's entrance into the American political landscape has changed the dynamics. And though we cannot say that by 2028, some states are not going to be categorically within the party in which they are now, that change is definitely going to come because there is immigration, internal immigration from state to state, and different orientations that parties are taking. Like when you look at New York now, Donald Trump is going to organize a rally in New York. It's a long time. Republican candidates have not organized rallies in New York, and they have given up New York. Then you look at Texas. Kamala Harris was there last night for a big rally, and she pulled out lots of people. So the dynamics are definitely going to change, but it's generally always a slow process. And we cannot discount also the fact that with immigration, education, changes in technology, there is the constant movement of information, movement of people, and changes in what people are seeing. So it's kind of a give and take at this point. But in the long run, things are definitely going to change because the parties are not going to be what they are. When you look at the trend in the Republican Party, beginning with Trump's appearance on the stage, things could possibly change, and we could see other smaller parties coming up strong and gaining ground in some other states to upend what we have today as blue and red states.
Let us come back to what the polls are saying, because apparently people are very sensitive to polling, but it's not always what we think at the end of the day. I'll just give you an example. Hillary Clinton led in most of the polls during the 2016 elections, particularly the months leading to election day. So in the months leading up to election, Clinton maintained an average lead over Trump. For example, in October of 2016, national polling averages from sources like Real Clear Politics showed Clinton with a lead ranging from 3 to 6 percentage points. Then, according to the same source, national average just before election day, Clinton was leading by almost 3.2 points. Now, we had Clinton, who led in many key battleground states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. Clinton had small but consistent leads in polls, though Trump ultimately won these states in the elections. So another statistics we have, various election projections gave Clinton the upper hand. Clinton had 71% chance of winning on election day, and those were the polls saying it. Now, despite these leads, Trump won in key swing states with narrow margins, which allowed him to secure the electoral college. Clinton won the popular vote by 2.1 percentage point. So you see polls that favored Clinton right till the last day, but at the end of the day, Trump became the winner. So I'm asking this question: what do these polls actually represent? Because you get people to a point where they're already happy seeing maybe their candidates winning elections. Then at the end of the day, the tables turn around and they lose. So what is the essence of this of polls?
Before I get to that, let me say that let me appreciate Marcel, the technician who's been working for close to 1 hour to get me in here. He's been doing a fantastic job, and finally I'm here. Marcel, hi, thanks so much. Unfortunately, technicians never come out on the screen. They carry the huge burden behind. Yeah, talking about polls. Polls generally represent a very small fraction of the voting population, and they have, over the last few cycles, have been kind of inconsistent. So there are two types of polls. There are the public polls, and then there are the internal polls. Candidates do not generally believe on the public polls. They run their own polls to see where they are. And candidates also, before they define their policies, they also run polls to see what is popular amongst the population. Then on those bases, they will define their policies to sell out. And with the public polls over the years have been kind of shaky, especially in regards to Donald Trump. But even before Donald Trump, they have always been slightly they slightly missed the target when it comes to the Republicans. But that was not what happened over the last midterms in 2022. The polls were out to the effect that Republicans were going to sweep most of the seats in Congress, but that didn't happen. So what is the lesson here? Polls don't represent votes, So people who look at polls, they have different things they look at, and the politicians themselves do not really focus on those polls. Personally, I don't look at polls as a general trend. I look at polls at very, very specific areas. Let's say we're looking at the state of Pennsylvania. I wouldn't be looking at a general poll in Pennsylvania. I am looking at what is happening in the counties that are actually competitive. Because if you look at polls generally, you would tend to think that the person who is leading in the polls is going to win the elections, which is not the case. Rodrigue actually made that point, because looking at elections in the United States, it is the electoral college that matters, and the states also matter, because those are the states that decide the elections. And one thing that we need to always talk about when we are talking about polls is these are just projections. Nobody polls everybody. The votes are what matter, and the votes are what enter the ballot box, and those are the things that are counted. So polls kind of shape the narrative. They kind of shape how people perceive the elections. They shape the strength of each candidate. But at the end of the day, they are not definite, and they will not determine how the outcome of the elections are going to be.
Beautiful.
I was just going to chip in real quick, to piggyback on what he just said. For anybody that is super interested in the election and is having some anxiety about how this is going to turn out, let them know that Donald Trump consistently polls less, and then the turnout vote is more on election day. So I Democrats should not feel comfortable with every poll where Kamala Harris is leading by a percentage point or less than a percentage point. You can guarantee that Donald Trump is going to win in that very poll.
If I may, on that, just to begin locally, when you have somebody like Colin Marshall in Channel 4 calling, just for example, for Bernie Moreno 1 point up out of the blue, I believe that they're calling the troops. They're coming to say, listen, in that way we go with Donald Trump. They're coming to say, listen, Donald Trump could be the next president. You got to go. Remember, there's a percentage that people do not show up to vote. A high percentage. And we're talking Franklin County, talking Ohio. This is why it's so crucial what Trump is doing As a matter of fact, that he go to Pennsylvania 3 times. Why is that? Because it's a critical state. Michigan is on the call. He might go Republican for the first time in a long time. But those are the stuff that perhaps they have nothing to do with the poll, but what really is happening.
Beautiful. Okay, so the reason we're talking about polls is because I do think, and like everyone says, everything in politics has a meaning. Everything counts in politics. It has a message. I was just thinking that some people could look at the figures and either get discouraged or more encouraged to work harder. Well, we'll come back to that, but I guess we will delve into how the candidates are doing, what policies they are bringing on the table, and see how we go from there. But if you're just joining us, this is Apex One Radio. It's 17 minutes to 2 here in the studio. It's 10:44 in California, from where our legal and policy analysis speaking. In the studio, we have Rodrigue, Nyumia, and Louis Gill. Rodrigue is a journalist and political analyst, and Gill is a politician representing the Republican Party. Right, so let's look at policy, what the candidates are putting on the table. But I would like us to narrow it down today to maybe two. If we have time, we can talk more, beginning with the most critical one, which is immigration. So in 2020, was it 2020 or 2016, Donald Trump was very particular about immigration and even promised to build a wall that would block some immigrants from coming into the United States. Let me ask the basic question. Why immigration? What is so urgent about immigration?
Well, I believe immigration is changing the landscape. I can only tell you in the Hispanic community, it's very large. I mentioned before when I came here over 30 years ago, there were 50 Venezuelans the whole day. Now we're a strong 35,000. Now, not only that overshadowed by what's happening in Springfield, with the Haitian community, 20,000 people came over almost overnight. And the population that Springfield is only 45,000. So they basically almost double the population in Springfield with the whole infrastructure. Those are the stuff that Trump is talking about, having a little bit of, immigration has to be control. It has to be, you can, New York is you can see this housing and stuff like that. Florida, I mean, is really overwhelming in the status of the economic system, where there are so many people now drawing social services where there was not the money or the budget to take care of that stuff. So there's a little disarray, and we just need to put some order to it.
Nyumia, population experts think that population in terms of numbers is power. So yet we see a country that is big enough to accommodate more millions of people, yet that is a problem.
Yeah, because to add on to what Louis just said, America is a country of immigrants.
Okay.
And there's structures in place. There's a process in place.
Okay.
Americans want people to come to America. The point is, how are they coming?
Okay.
And are they coming legally? Do we have the infrastructure to welcome these people? Because if you step back and look at it, Democrats are like everybody in, regardless of what the situation. And Republicans want people in, but they want people in a very orderly manner, in a systematic way, such that the infrastructures in place will be able to accommodate them. But now here's the political side of it. The idea, which is what fascinates me, because I've seen Elon Musk tweeting about this the other day, that Democrats want everybody in to dilute the votes. Okay. I wish somebody would tell him that immigrants are inherently conservative. Now, if you do a polling of immigrants and you take the tag away of Republican or Democrat and you discuss the issues with them, you realize that they lean conservative than Democrats. Okay. But the point is, when you talk, do you support the Republican Party or the Democratic Party? They'll be like, of course, I support the Democratic Party, partly because they let me get here. But when these people circle around and they settle in the United States, they tend to lean Republican. So the idea that all immigrants will vote Democrat is a farce, is incorrect. It is not going to work. That's not how it works. Now,
Bernard, can you hear me?
5 and 5.
Okay, good. So let us talk immigration, which is one of the top-notch topics in the 2024 presidential election campaign in the United States. So you would agree with me that Democrats would not openly say that they support illegal immigration. Republicans say yes, there should be immigration, but it should be done legally. So at the end of the day, they seem to be speaking the same language. Well, but someone also says that Democrats want the door open so everyone can come in, and so everyone is saying their own thing. So at the end of the day, who is saying what, and how would you assess how both sides are putting forth the argument?
One thing is the what's fly and actions actually matter. If immigration is a top question today in these elections, it's because of the number of illegal immigrants that have come in through the southern border, which I don't want to call illegal immigrants. I want to say those who come in through the southern border without following the due process of immigration.
That's illegal. you cannot be nice. It's illegal. If you come in without going through the process, you came in illegally.
Yeah, we can put a different color, but it's black or white.
All right, yeah, that is it. Because when I studied immigration law, one of the first things that my professor of immigration law said in class was, I am going to play this video so that you watch it and then you wouldn't think that this is an anti-Trump class. This professor is an immigrant to the United States, and he played a video of Bill Clinton when he was addressing at the State of the Union when he was president some time ago. And Bill Clinton actually was for the fact that he was going to build a wall and he was going to control immigration from the border, from the southern border. Then when you look at Hillary Clinton around the 2008, she was also concerned about the illegal flow of immigrants from the southern border. Biden the same thing, Obama the same thing. And now the narrative has changed for reasons that would actually be, to me, that would actually be ascribed to the political language and the political terrain that's evolved. Almost all of Trump's policies mimic policies that others have had in the past. But because of the media landscape, in my view, the characterization of what Trump says and Trump's characterization of what he says changes the landscape and the interpretation of what has been given to him. So that makes the narrative completely different, and it changes the way people look at it. Now, I want to agree with Rodrigue with what he said about immigration, because most immigrants are conservative. And I've been putting out an op-ed on this. It's been taking me forever. I'm putting out an op-ed on this because when you look at what immigrants think about the family, it aligns with what Republicans think. What immigrants think about country, it aligns with what immigrants think, what conservatives think. When it comes to the economy, the same thing. When it comes to international relations, foreign policy, the same thing. Most immigrants want peace in their countries. Most immigrants don't want foreign governments to interfere in what is happening in their countries. Most immigrants want to have family the way they know it from their countries. So all these things align. But then when it comes to voting, most immigrants are a one-issue voting bloc. That is immigration, because they feel and they know that America is comfortable. America can change their lives. They want to live the American dream. So they think about how would they bring in more of their family members here to also enjoy the American dream. So they tend to vote around that. And now the understanding that Republicans are against immigration is the language that is projected out there. The media will not say that Republicans or Trump is against illegal immigration. Generally, they will take off the qualifier illegal and just say immigrant for whatever reason. Then, before traveling to the United States, most immigrants are used to one American media outlet, and that is CNN. So most people watch CNN before coming to the United States. Then when they are in the United States, they continue watching what they know. You know, old habits die hard. Most people don't know Fox News. So there is this competing information between conservative media and liberal media is not out there. So you come in with what you already know, and when you in, you continue following with that information that you have, or the information channel that you have. So it shapes the narrative and it shapes where people go to. You see. So this now makes immigrants to be one party voters, because they think about themselves and how they are being characterized. And very few people actually listen to what politicians say. Most people get their news from the media, and media doesn't report exactly what is said. Media interprets what somebody said and then gives it out to you. So this makes it completely different. The information you get is completely different. And everybody now sits in to think that immigration is that they are considered lesser of human beings than what other people are being considered in the United States. So in my view, that is what shapes the immigrant's mind when he is making voting decisions.
Well, if I may add,
Yes.
also when the immigrants come in and then the influences on their kids, education, economy, those are the stuff that tend to do with whoever's actually the president. Inflation goes up, the economy gets better. And those are the stuff that most eager immigrants are worried about: education, economy, and the jobs.
All right, this is Apex One Radio. We're live from the United States of America. We are talking politics and looking ahead of the November the 5th presidential election, which will, change the dynamics, if not maintain the status quo. Maintaining the status quo will probably mean that we will have Kamala Harris still win to stay at the White House. But then we are not yet there. So let's probably move to the next policy and talk about the economy. The economy has also been very topical in this election and this campaign, and it is coming on the heels or in the context of inflation. So to begin with, the Republicans say Biden is responsible for the inflation. Biden says no. Circumstances led America to this current economic issue. So, at the end of the day, who are we hanging this current economic quagmire on? It goes. Whose responsibility is it, Rodrigue?
It is a continuous rolling ball, in my opinion. You realize that COVID happened, and starting President Trump was in office, he started initiating all this help for small businesses and everyday Americans. Something to assist them not sink. Well, Biden became the president after that and continued and gave a couple of stimulus packages. Well, for everybody that has done economics 101 knows that too much money in the economy causes inflation.
That's correct.
So it's not something that I will personally attribute it to any single president. It started under President Trump and continued under President Biden. Regardless, there is inflation. What I would, as an American, I would have asked of the Biden presidency is, can you be aggressive in trying to resolve this problem? I get it. I forgive you for putting in so much money in the economy in the first place that caused inflation. But now what are you doing trying to, help the situation? It's kind of what is it? So it's not a single president's issue, because if you want to look at how we got here, it originated from the Trump administration, rightfully so. There was COVID-19. So the point is, Biden has been too careful in trying to address the situation. And if you look at it, things like energy, if the cost of energy is up, it inevitably affects the cost of everything.
Every American.
And then this comes down now to ideologies, party lines. Republicans are all for drill, baby, drill. Open the pipelines, do the fracking. If the economy is well on with the energy, then everything would fall in place. Whereas Democrats are like, wait, hold on. We've got to preserve this planet for the next generation and the generation to come. So policy differences has inadvertently affected the economy, and here we are today. But again, remember what I told you guys earlier. Donald Trump is a good salesman. He's not going to go down and explain the intricacies to you. He's just going to, Harris is bad, Trump is good. They broke it. And in the last, I think, it was a podcast that Donald Trump was on. He did go, and in this last week, or a little bit over a week that is left, his last closing message is, Harris and Biden, they broke it. I'm gonna fix it. That kind of credit to him.
Leave it to Trump to make this stuff.
Good salesman. Yeah.
Louis, let me come back to you. If Biden and his administration did not handle the inflation properly, do you think Trump would have done so if he won the 2020 election?
Well, let's go back to 2016. The economy in 2016 for Trump was spectacular, especially when the gallon of gas was $1.90 or something like that. Unfortunately, COVID came in and it was a disaster. And I'm not blaming COVID, it's just a natural thing that happened. But it was COVID. Was China trying to control the economy in the United States? We don't know that, but we know that China wants to be one of the number ones in the world. But one of the things that stick to my mind in the economy is the wars, Ukraine and Russia. Recently, Biden gave $1 billion to the president of Ukraine to keep fighting this fight. And the fact of the matter, that we think that if Trump gets elected, that will end. And, Putin and Biden, there's no secret, they get along better than what Putin gets with Biden. And the fact of the matter, that will help the world economy. That is draining the world right now. I mean, having Europe there nearby, Putin in charge of the oil pipeline, those are the stuff that worry internationally. And I believe Trump will be the guy, he's a businessman, that will negotiate for the better of Europe. And that will help the United States indirectly. Go ahead.
Thank you. Let me put that question to Ben differently. Rodrigue just mentioned how politics interferes into policy, and when it comes to economics, it should be different because I assume that every country has experts in economics who advise the country on its economy. So why would political interests come into things like the economy, which is of course a science, So this side wants to do it differently, yet it's the same thing. We're talking about the economy, and this is near science. It's not like something that they should use politics to meddle with. So how would you appreciate the fact that, or how would you, what appreciation would you have, the fact that Trump and his people want to do it their own way, the Democrats want to do it their own way, but they're dealing with the same economic issue?
Yeah, Gil and Rodrigue have made very, very serious points out there. The first point is Trump is a very good salesman. And Donald Trump actually said people vote with their stomachs and not with their heads. So the experts speak expert language. And that expert language does not reflect when I go to the grocery store and what I used to buy for $1, I now buy it for $3 or $4. That doesn't translate into anything in expert language. So the consumer, the voter, knows that 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, he was better off. He would go into a store and buy a loaf of bread or a pack of bread for $1.97. But today it's about $7 or $3, $4. So he knows that, and that is what reflects in the voter's mind. And then Trump comes along and says, life is more expensive today because Kamala Harris and Biden did A, B, C, and D. He doesn't even mention that he's the first person who sent out stimulus checks. He doesn't mention that. He doesn't mention that the economy was closed under him. So the buyer, the voter, listens to the message as it is. And then I think the biggest mistake that the Biden administration made was disowning the inflation. and claiming that Bidenomics is working. Just by claiming that Bidenomics is working while the cost of living is increasing brought sowed doubts into people's minds. You should accept that, yes, it is not working at this moment, but we are fighting it hard. They even went as far as saying that there is no inflation. It is just transitory. You will not feel it. You will not feel it. So it makes the people question their ability to solve the problem and the dedication to solve the problem. And the people now know that Trump had a good economy and they did not suffer that much during Trump's regime. So they willingly, or not willingly, but they consciously or unconsciously know that Trump can actually solve the problem. And Trump is hitting hard on this. That's why when you look at the polls, though the polls don't really represent anything, but when you talk to people every day, the cost of living is the biggest problem. And then the wars, the amount of money that is spent on the war in Ukraine, for instance, that money doesn't go entirely to Ukraine. Some of it stays in the United States and comes back into the economy. So it drives the cost of living up. And the cost of oil, there could be as many exploitation licenses for oil and gas now, but in as much as the people know that there is a risk that due to the climate policies of Biden and Harris, it's possible that they would stop oil production. The people are thinking about the consequences of stopping the oil production. And if the oil production is stopped or reduced, then the cost of oil is definitely going to increase. So this makes the people to think about what they stand to benefit. Now, the politicians themselves, they are not looking at what the people stand to benefit. They're looking at their own benefits. What am I going to benefit out of this? I'm going to benefit if I keep on drumming to these people's ears that the cost of living is high and I am going to resolve this problem. After all, I was already there and my economy was better. So people are going to vote with their stomachs, not with their heads. And that is elections. That is politics.
And
Okay.
to add on to Trump being a good salesman, I don't know if you guys remember vividly when the first stimulus checks were issued out, that is a bill that was passed by Congress. Donald Trump signed those checks.
Yep.
So when people got the check, they looked at the city name on it. They said, "This is the president." I mean, he's a genius coming to ask, answering the question where you say, why is Donald Trump still relevant? These are some of the little things that he does that sink in with people, but the regular guy doesn't really pay attention to.
Well, they wanted the stimulus money to put it back, injected back into the economy, and that's what people saw.
Beautiful. We will soon run off. Unfortunately, we don't have much time for this, but we'll be back next week. I guess we'll be back next week and throw more light on this and more things before election day. So we'll just take one round of questions, then we'll be out of here, at least for today. Quickly, Rodrigue, in maybe 30 seconds, what is it that Trump is bringing today, which he probably did not in the past? Oh, look at Trump yesterday and Trump today.
Okay, so he's going to continue to double down on his rhetoric.
Okay.
The immigration, the border. He's going to, if he wins election coming November 5th, I believe, Trump is just going to go back to, okay, let's stop people from coming in. Because there's a couple of executive order within 20 minutes of him becoming the president, he can sign remain in Mexico policy. That's the very first thing that Trump would do. And what that would do, it would trickle down. Now, the amount of resources that the federal government is having to spend in the border to be able to secure, it will put a stop. Now, another thing for people that are already on this side of the border is that Trump also was like, okay, let's quit having these people dabbling in the system and not knowing what to do. They try to appoint and hire more judges to process the asylum claim. So Trump is not going to bring anything very new. He's going to go back to reinforcing the things he's done. Like you look at Europe, for instance, everybody should pay their bill when it comes to NATO. He's going right back and said, America is not going to pay for your defense.
Beautiful. Ben, are there people who are going to, are there voters who voted for the Democratic Party in 2020 who may not vote this time, perhaps because of policy? Otherwise, what is the role of policy in in campaign speeches. 30 seconds.
I really think policy doesn't really trickle down to what people feel out there. People really vote in response to their immediate environment, and they're looking at especially the economy. Will I pay my bills? Will I send my kids to school? Can I buy a house? And these things are out of the people's reach now. And what people actually voted for in 2020 was voting against Trump, not necessarily for Biden. And at that time, the message was, we are sending Trump out to fix the country. And the people are asking themselves now, has the country been fixed? So everybody is having that question in his mind as they go to the polls. Thank you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I'll go from there. So we are sending Trump out to fix the country. So according to those people, Trump had destroyed the country before leaving. Trump hasn't had the time to fix that country, yet they're bringing him back. Are they hoping that they are bringing him back to do anything better when he didn't do?
Yeah. Well, one of the things, Trump is off the cuff. I mean, he would say things that people would like, especially American people. They were born here. One of the things that Trump is saying, I'm going to clean up. And people believe that he's going to clean up.
Okay.
I believe that.
So they're giving him a second chance.
Well, but at the same time, he doesn't have the power. Congress has the power.
Okay.
But the fact of the matter, the image and the fact that he's the one that's going to do it is the fact that people believe that that's what's going to happen. The voter, he's going to, my prediction, he wins. He's going to go to the voter and say, I'm doing this. And that creates the image that all the Americans want to see.
Beautiful. For one of time, we're going to end here for today. We will be back next week, and we will not most likely, but certainly have a representative from the Democratic Party so that we can have a much more balanced conversation next week. But just before we go away, and I just thought of something which we discussed offline. Is Ohio still a swing state? If not, why?
No, Ohio is a solid red state.
What happened
right
to
now.
Ohio?
In the last 3 elections, I think it's voted Republican.
Okay.
And when you look at that trend, Ohio is now a reliably red state.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does that
if I may, except
yeah.
Cincinnati, Columbus, Toledo, Columbus, and Dayton.
Oh wow.
Those are the counties.
Cleveland too.
And
Cuyahoga
Cleveland,
County.
Cuyahoga County.
And what you look is that in these cities, there's always like a major university in these cities that attract younger people, and younger people tend to vote
Democrats.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, let's end here for today. We'll continue this week. Ben, if you're available, I will have you again next week so that we have more discussions on this. Well, thank you so much. It's unfortunate that you got on the show a little bit late because of technical issues, but we'll sort that out and we'll do better next week.
Stuff happens.
Sure. All right. Do have a fantastic rest of the day, Ben. Rodrigue, thank you so much for coming. And
thank you.
Let's take another rendezvous next week. Louis, thank you so much for coming. And we're looking forward to seeing how things unfold. And for you out there, thank you so much for having been with us this past couple of minutes on this show. Remember that Americans in the country and those abroad go to the polls on November the 5th, 2024 to elect their new president. And for those of you who will be voting, all right, you go ahead and do that, and that's a civic responsibility. Well, for us here, we want to say thank you so much. We'll be back next week to continue this conversation, and of course we will have an election night on November the 5th. Thank you once again. My name is Ernest. Marcel Ajit was our producer, and we had support from Okon Ekweyon. Rodrigue, Nyumia, Ernest, Kanjo, Rodrigue, and Bernard Ngalim saying bye-bye and have a fantastic rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.